June 25th, 2009. A day the world pretty much stood still. Why? Because the king of pop, maybe the most famous entertainer on the planet, was dead. Now, the official story says it was a drug overdose, and yeah, that's true. But that simple fact, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The real story is so much more complicated. It's about incredible pain, pressure you can't even imagine, and, when it all comes down to it, just shocking negligence.
And this is where the public story begins, with a really frantic 911 call from inside Michael Jackson's rented mansion in LA. You can just hear the panic in the voice. And get this, the person on the line? It's not a doctor, it's not a nurse, it's a security guard. And he's just saying there's a 50-year-old man who's not breathing, he needs help. And of course, we all know now, that man was Michael Jackson.
It didn't take long. Within hours, the news that everyone was dreading was confirmed, and it just sent this massive shockwave across the entire globe. Michael Jackson was gone, at just 50 years old. Paramedics, they did everything they could. They tried to revive him at the house. They rushed him to the hospital, but it was just too late.
So the coroner's report comes out, and it's very clinical, very official. The cause of death? Acute propofol intoxication. But okay, what does that even mean? That's a result, right? It's not the reason why. The real question, the one we're all still asking is, how did this happen? How did the biggest star in the world die in his own bedroom from a powerful drug that's meant for an operating room? That's the mystery we're really going to dig into.
Okay, so to really get what happened that morning, we've got to go back, way back. Because this wasn't about one bad decision on one single day. No, his death was more like the last domino to fall in a chain reaction that had been set up for decades.
Just look at this timeline. It's basically a 25-year story of escalating pain. It really kicks off in 1984. You probably remember this, that infamous Pepsi commercial where the pyrotechnics went wrong. He got horrible second and third degree burns, and that's when he really started using powerful painkillers. Fast forward 15 years to 1999. He's on stage in Munich, and a lift malfunctions. He falls 50 feet. It caused chronic, long-term spinal damage. So now, by the early 2000s, all this physical pain, plus all the stress of being, well, Michael Jackson, it all snowballs into this crippling insomnia. We're talking he couldn't sleep for days at a time. And then you get to 2009. He announces the This Is It tour, a 50-show comeback tour. The pressure was just immense, absolutely impossible. So in those final months, with that massive tour hanging over his head, this whole complicated backstory starts to narrow. It really boils down to two key things: a doctor and a drug. A very specific drug that Michael Jackson saw as his only solution.
All right, let's be super clear about what we're talking about with Propofol. This is not a sleeping pill. It's not something you just take to get some rest. It's a powerful, potent anesthetic. It's the stuff they use in hospitals to knock you out completely for surgery. And when they use it, you're hooked up to all sorts of monitors, with professionals watching your every breath, your every heartbeat. So using it in someone's bedroom to help them sleep, it's not just a bad idea. It's incredibly dangerous, like recklessly dangerous.
And this one little detail just shows you how desperate Michael was. He had a nickname for it. Because of its milky white color, he called it his milk. Can you imagine? To him, after trying everything else for years, this was the only thing that he thought could finally make him sleep. The only thing that could give him the rest he needed to get back on that stage. So, who's giving him this milk? A man named Dr. Conrad Murray, a cardiologist. He was hired just for the This Is It tour by the concert promoter AEG Live. And his salary? Get this, $150,000 a month. And what was his job? Just one thing, really. Keep Michael Jackson healthy enough to perform. That's it. Okay, so now that we have all that background, let's go back to that final night. Let's look at the timeline of exactly how all of this came together and ended in tragedy. So, Michael gets home from rehearsal after midnight. He's completely exhausted, but his mind is racing. He can't sleep, and for the next 9 hours, Dr. Murray gives him this cocktail of sedatives, one after another. At 1:30 a.m., it's Valium, then at 2, lorazepam, at 3, midazolam. He even gives him more lorazepam at 5 a.m. and more midazolam at 7:30. But nothing is working. Michael is still awake, and with every single dose, they're pushing his body's ability to breathe closer and closer to the edge. Finally, it's after 10 in the morning. A whole night of this, and he's still awake. He's pleading. And according to Dr. Murray's own statement to the police, this is what Michael said. He begged him, "Please, please give me some milk." And Murray did. He gave him the Propofol.
What followed was just a complete breakdown of medical care. Prosecutors called it gross negligence. And here's why. First, he gave him the drug with absolutely no proper monitoring equipment. No heart monitor, no oxygen monitor, nothing. Then when he finds Michael isn't breathing, he waits, get this, over an hour before anyone calls 911. He tries to do CPR, but he does it on the bed, on a soft mattress where it's basically useless. And to top it all off, phone records show that right around the time Michael probably stopped breathing, Dr. Murray was making personal phone calls.
Well, the aftermath came pretty quickly. Dr. Murray was arrested, and the whole world was glued to the TV as this thing went to trial. But as we're about to see, even getting a verdict from a jury, that wasn't going to be enough to put all the questions to rest. So, in 2011, the verdict came in. A jury found Dr. Conrad Murray guilty of involuntary manslaughter. He got the maximum sentence, which was 4 years. But because of jail overcrowding in California, he ended up being released after serving less than 2 of them.
And that right there is the core issue that people still argue about today. On one hand, you have the official ruling. Dr. Murray was criminally negligent, and that negligence caused Michael Jackson's death. Case closed, right? Well, not for a lot of people. For his family, for millions of fans, that answer just felt too easy. It left them asking the bigger questions. Was Murray really the only person to blame here? What about everybody else who was putting all this pressure on Michael?
And these aren't just random doubts. They're fueled by things that just don't seem to add up. Like, why would a trained doctor, a cardiologist no less, not know you can't do CPR on a soft bed? And why wait so long to call 911? The questions also started pointing towards the concert promoter, AEG Live. Were they just ignoring the warning signs about Michael's health because they had so much money on the line? And then there's this, which for some people was the smoking gun, the tour's insurance policy. It covered death by an overdose. You can see why that raised a lot of eyebrows.
So that leaves us with the big final question, the one that really lingers. Was Conrad Murray just a lone villain, a single reckless doctor who made a terrible, fatal mistake? Or was he just a piece of a much bigger puzzle? A pawn in a system full of enablers and immense financial pressure that completely failed to protect a global icon at his most vulnerable. The court gave us one answer, but for millions of people around the world, the real story, well, that's still very much up for debate.